Welcome to PR Like a Boss, the podcast where we dive into the strategies and stories that drive great PR. I'm your host, Patz, and today we're exploring the power of partnerships in PR. Collaborations between brands and influencers have transformed the way PR is done, helping to create memorable campaigns, expand reach, and connect with audiences in meaningful ways. Joining me to talk about what makes a successful collaboration is Siobhan McGeown, the PR manager at Tropic Skincare. Siobhan brings a wealth of experience from both agency and in-house roles. Having worked with some great household names in beauty like Bioderma and Tweezerman, she's passionate about building strong relationships and crafting creative stories that resonate. Siobhan, welcome to PR Like a Boss.
Thanks very much for having me. Excited to be here.
So let's start at the beginning. When you're considering a partnership, what's the process behind identifying the right collaboration? And are there certain things you look for that tell you a partnership will really click?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for me, the best influencer partnerships are always the ones that are built on authenticity. So where that influencers community, they've seen them talk about that brand organically lots before any resulting paid partnership. And actually, Patz, I could give you an example of, it's not a partnership I've done, but it's one that's happened recently that I think is just the gold standard of authentic influencer partnerships. So that's Mel, aka Melissa's Wardrobe. She built her profile initially for being Stormzy's stylist. She's grown the most loyal community of young women. She has her own lifestyle blog now as well. And earlier this year, or it might have been last, she started posting about the matcha drinks from Blank Street. And then a couple of months ago, she announced a surprise collaboration on a limited edition matcha drink. And more recently, there was merch too, which sold out almost instantly. The drink itself was off menu, so very much a kind of if you know situation. But there was queues out the doors. They were shifting tens of thousands of drinks a week. Mel was reposting all the mentions from her followers with their drinks, and they held a community event too. So the sentiment was truly off the charts, and that really is a really strong example of how to get influence and brand partnerships right.
Yeah, and I think you're right. There needs to be authenticity there. It needs to be like a natural fit.
Yeah, like it makes me cringe a bit when you see an influencer promoting a brand or product and talking about how much they love it, but you've never once seen them use it before. It feels really inauthentic, and I think followers and community can see right through that. In terms of how we work at Tropic, so there's a few ways we work in terms of identifying partnerships. One is that an influencer of any size is creating really great organic content about us. And then I see that as an opportunity to take that a step further. An example for us would be Leanne Hainsby. So she's a Peloton instructor, really inspiring person. Got about 500,000 followers, and she did a cover interview for Women's Health, and she spoke about how her nutritionist had recommended Tropic products when she was going through treatment for breast cancer. So she was looking for more kind of gentle products that would suit her skin at that time, and she'd really fallen in love with the brand. Obviously, that was amazing to hear that we'd played a small role in helping her feel good during a difficult time. So we reached out and we established a relationship, because at that point she was a paying customer of ours, and we partnered with her on some social content, and it performed really well on her channel as well as on ours. And that's because her audience already knew she used our products. The campaign itself was hooked on our fresh natural formulas, and so it really spoke to her personal experience. So partnerships like that aren't necessarily planned ages in advance but just come about really authentically, work really well. And the second way we work with influencers is that sometimes we'll have a new launch or a campaign, and we'll want to work with influencers to create content as part of that. So in those instances, I'll have a think about who in our community is best suited to that campaign or product and approach them. We do have a program called Tropic Creator Community, which is made up of hundreds of micro and nano creators who truly love the brand. They benefit from special perks like new product drops and events throughout the year. So there is a huge network of existing brand advocates that I can tap into for paid partnerships, alongside, of course, our kind of influencer fans with bigger audiences too.
Yeah, I think when you do find those great collaborations, it's just a perfect fit, right?
Yeah.
You know that the your partner in crime, let's say, is really an advocate
Yeah.
for a product or a service. That's when the real magic begins. You just see it all come together, and it's very natural, like I said before, and it really works. It just works. Can you tell me how you go about crafting the story to highlight both brands? What are some of the ways you make sure each brand's identity is preserved? Because that's so important, whilst creating something unique together. Essentially, you're creating something new together, right? So how do you go about crafting those stories for both parties?
Yeah, definitely. And I think there is a kind of an art to it, isn't there? And I think sometimes where brands can go wrong is perhaps not giving their PR or influencer teams full autonomy on briefs and the creative process. A lot of brands have big global teams, and sometimes that means that campaign assets, including influencer content, can go through layers and layers of approvals. And what that often means is you end up with something that feels very branded to the brand themselves, and essentially a watered down version of what the influencer has pitched for their audience.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I'm sure all of us working in PR have had some experience of this, myself included.
Oh, 100%.
And I'm very fortunate, genuinely, at Tropic, that my boss, Emily, who I know will be listening to this, so hi, Emily, but she really does empower me to work with creators on interpreting the brief in a way that's going to appeal to their audience, because ultimately no one knows their audience better than them. And like you say, it's important that any partnership is their brands in and of themselves. They've got their own personal brand, so that has to form part of it. In terms of what we do, firstly, I'll provide a clear brief. Obviously, it needs to be concise. It needs to include those key messages that you either need the influencer to include verbatim if there's a very specific campaign tagline or message, or key messages that is open for them to interpret into their own tone of voice. If relevant, I might include a couple of examples of previous content of theirs, or if it's a trending format, someone else's content for inspiration purposes. I'll usually also include a kind of do's and don'ts section to clearly list out any non-negotiables. In our case, that would include things like not wearing any animal derived clothing or accessories, encouraging them to consider trending formats or sounds, things like that. But in terms of the storytelling, I like to give a lot of creative freedom to the influencers we partner with. I think that's where you'll get best results. They will also, have insights to their audience that we're not privy to. They'll also be aware of what else they've got coming up, or projects that might not be revealed yet that would make sense to kind of link to in some way that they can share with us. I do sometimes ask for a synopsis in advance, especially if their content involves them talking to camera, then I'll often suggest they share the script in advance. But that's more just so I can ensure that everything is covered to reduce any need for a reshoot. So any feedback I share is typically more about ensuring that all the points from the brief are met, rather than critiquing the creative itself. I'd say if the content is primarily for their audience, I think it's important for us in PR and influencer marketing to not be prescriptive, really trust the creator. However, you're working with a small creator on a specific form of content that perhaps you want to use for a paid ad. In that instance, obviously your brief will probably be a little bit more prescriptive, as you've engineered it for a specific purpose. But even then, I would say you should involve the influencer in the creative process always, because they're always going to bring so much to the table, and that collaborative approach is where you're always going to get the best results. We also have a lot of brand values, and so often I'll list them out, but I'll ask the influencer perhaps to select up to 2 that most resonate with them and their audience for inclusion in the content or caption if relevant, rather than trying to squeeze every positive thing you can say about us as a brand into a piece of content or a caption, because it just feels really inauthentic and it feels very heavily branded.
Yeah, I mean, it feels salesy, doesn't it, really?
It does. It feels very salesy and promotional, for sure.
Yeah. And look, it's a business, right? And when it comes to partnerships, there is hopefully a win-win. Okay. So obviously, when it comes to measuring success, that is key at the end of every collaboration, every campaign. So how do you assess the impact of a collaboration? And are there any specific metrics or feedback that you pay attention to?
Yeah, so I mean, we do look at the standard influencer metrics, so likes, views, engagement rate, EMB, shares, but we also look at how content performs when reposted on our social channels, i.e., how does our existing audience react to it?
Mm.
Is it helping us to extend the reach on our accounts? Uniquely or fairly uniquely to Tropic, we also have over 20,000 ambassadors across the UK who sell Tropic product. So when partnering with perhaps more so larger influencers, we're also doing that as a marketing tool for our ambassadors businesses too, for them to be able to share content with their customers and say, did you see what influencer X said about our new launch?
Mm.
So a measure of success for us would also be positive sentiment and engagement with content from our ambassadors. What I would say is one metric we don't typically focus on is sales impact, especially not for kind of one-off partnerships, because for us it's very much about those authentic mid to long term relationships. And I think the days of an influencer, even those bigger influencers, posting or mentioning a brand and you seeing a kind of instant sellout, it can and does still happen, but it's very much a rarity. Obviously for brands that have affiliate programs, you can obviously take some insights on sales impact from there, but that's not something we currently have as a brand.
And that's really interesting that you say that. I think it, things have changed. The landscape has
Yes,
changed,
a lot.
and it has. And from being in the corporate world to freelancing for the past 11 years now, trying to manage those conversations and manage those expectations with clients can be quite difficult
Yeah,
because they automatically think that PR will give you that massive sales spike. Yes, do you know what? Sometimes it does, but ultimately PR is very much there as a brand building tool.
yeah,
It's about building that sort of reach and getting that brand awareness out. And sometimes I feel that that kind of gets a little bit diluted because
yeah,
all clients are focused on is, well, how much is it going to make me?
yeah.
And it's a shame.
Yeah, it's that very short term outlook, which I think it's not unique to any one company. It's a very widespread belief, I think, with a lot of senior leaders in various businesses who perhaps, as they work their way to the position they're currently in, haven't necessarily ever. They might have had a marketing role at some point, but it's
Mhm.
very rare that someone at a CEO or MD level of a lot of these brands will have directly worked in a PR role. So I think a big part for all of us, whether we're freelance or in-house or agency, a big part of our roles is also bringing, senior leaders on that journey and helping them to understand the pivotal role that PR plays, but actually looking at what those metrics are that show the impact of PR, but that aren't always very sales driven. Obviously, we do live in very performance driven times now. It's certainly a challenge, but it is, as you say, it's that brand awareness piece, and it's very hard to measure in a tangible way. But I think if a business was to switch off their PR activity, I think give it a few weeks or a couple of months, and that's when you see the impact of not having it.
Oh,
Um,
definitely.
but yeah, hopefully businesses don't try that as a test.
Okay, so now for a little bit of fun.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear your collab dream scenario. Okay, so imagine you could collaborate with any brand in the world, like no limits, even budget
yeah.
wise, like go mad.
Great.
Um,
Now you're talking, Pat.
who would it be? Who would it be with, and
Mm.
what would the campaign look like?
Okay, well, I love this question. It's actually something we want to do more of. So brand partnerships. And so, I mean, maybe I should be careful what I say in case I jinx it, or maybe I'll manifest it into being. Let's see.
Put it out
Um,
into the universe. That's what I always say.
let's do it. So for us, I mean, we're a purpose-driven brand, so there
Hmm.
are certain non-negotiables we'd be looking for when choosing another brand to partner with, at a top line level, kind of vegan, cruelty-free,
Hmm.
very empowering. We use the tagline skincare made fresh a lot.
Hmm.
So we freshly make our products daily in what we call our Surrey beauty kitchen. I'm sitting above it right now. And that shares a lot of similarities with how food brands manufacture. So all the mixing, the pouring, the squeezing, of those fresh, nutritious ingredients. So perhaps a partnership with a kind of healthy snack brand, something like a Delicious.
Hmm.
So maybe we could create a glow-giving natural snack bar or cold pressed juice. And in terms of how we market it, I'd love to create some engaging, entertaining content with our two female founders, so Susie for us and Ella for them. We could then push that content out on their pages, on our social channels, as well as putting some paid spend behind it. You know, if there's no budget constraints, why don't we chuck in some out of home? Let's do some billboards and bus stops, etc. We could host a PR event for press and influencers, including literal tastemakers, so some nutritionists, some food influencers, as well as some beauty and lifestyle creators. Perhaps it would take place at one of our HQs. It could include a factory tour. I know people really love that sensorial experience of seeing how the products are made. It's all very kind of ASMR down there. It's a real opportunity to provide that authentic brand experience and create that social hype across Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Susie and Ella would be on hand. They could share the steps that led to the partnership, as well as insights into their own journeys as young female founders who've scaled huge businesses. Maybe we'll do some limited edition merch. Maybe we'll add in some community events, give our audience the chance to join us for a similar event at HQ, or maybe even take an adaptive version of the creative on the road. Connecting with communities all over the UK is really important to us as a brand. We're not a very London-centric brand at all. Perhaps we pop up with a branded food truck in those key cities, maybe sponsor some run clubs, yoga events, other sporting events, layer on some data capture ops. So sign up to unlock your sample at the event. We could do some sampling via influencers on social via soap posts. Shall we do a media partnership, newsletter sign up competition?
Go
what do you
wild.
think? How does that
go
sound?
wild.
Pat?
Go wild. I mean, come on.
You just say no budget, right?
Exactly, no budget. Like, and that's the dream really for a PR. Like, just
Yes.
basically to go wild, do as much activity as you can, and bring on some really great partners on board.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, that was great. So insightful, and a lot of food for thought, excuse the pun, but there was there. And it's, I think a lot of brands and service-based professionals can take a lot of inspiration from that go wild perspective. Like, what is your dream collaboration? And just like make it work. You may not be able to do everything all in one go. Maybe it's something that you can stagger out year on year, but why not?
Exactly. And sometimes when you dream big and have those conversations, it then sparks ideas with your colleagues, and there might be something you can do as a small test. Like, no idea is too big, is it? In PR, it's our role, isn't it, to think big, and to take our brand awareness to the next level. And sometimes you need those big sky ideas to be able to do that.
Oh, definitely. Like I said, this has been so insightful. Thank you for sharing your experience and what makes a partnership truly impactful. Where can listeners learn more about you and Tropic Skincare?
Sure. Well, and thank you very much, Patz. And I really look forward to listening to the series. You can find me. I'm on LinkedIn and also Instagram, just as my name. So it's Siobhan _McGeown on both. And for Tropic as a brand, you can find us at Tropic Skincare on all social channels, or tropicskincare.com.
Oh, thanks again. And thank you to my listeners for tuning in to PR Like a Boss. Remember, collaborations are all about finding the right fit and telling a story that's true to both brands involved. Super important. Catch you next time for more insights on how to ace your PR game. Until then, keep pushing boundaries and PRing like a boss.